In this video, we're going to be reviewing percentage and doing some calculations using percentage. The word percent we need to understand first. We can see here that per means for every and cent means 100. So when we talk about percent, we're talking about a fraction out of 100. We can actually see that the sign percent uses those symbols as well as the 100. So it's a sign that represents every fraction that's out of 100. So it's important to know what percent actually is. So when we see something like 20%, we know in fact that it's talking about 20 hundredths. And this is language that I want you to get familiar with using and understanding as we venture through some calculations on percentage. Alright, now you've probably seen this kind of thing before, the double number line, where we have percentage on one side and the number on the other. This is helpful when we're finding calculations using percentage to understand that 15% of the number 100 is 15. If we looked at a different number and was looking at 15% maybe of the number 60, we would find that it's a different number. It's going to be less than 15. So we are looking at an understanding of percentage of numbers, and we need to use the double number line of thinking to make these calculations. Another thing I'd like you to understand is that we rename percents. I want you to know the different names that we call a percentage. So let's start with 20%. We can write this as a percent, or we can write this as a fraction, or we can write this as a decimal. And we can go between the three different ways or three different names of calling a percent. We don't always use the same name. Okay, so you need to be able to go between these different calculations easily. There's an easy way to do that, and that's thinking of what we spoke about before with the hundredths. That 20% is 20 hundredths, or percent means hundredths. And that language helps us know what it is we need to do. So 20%, meaning 20 hundredths, becomes the fraction 20 hundredths. And they mean the same thing, 20 hundredths. Now that fraction can obviously be simplified. We can simplify both of these numbers by looking at the highest common factors between them. So 20 has a common factor of 20 and 100 as well. So we can divide 20 by 20 and get 1. And we can divide 100 by 20 and we can get 5. So we can simplify that fraction, but we know that 20% can be represented as 20 hundredths. Now that language hundredths helps us with the decimal. It tells us which place the numbers go when we look at our place value charts. We know between the ones and the decimal fractions is with decimal point. Ones, tens, tenths, hundredths. So if we were talking about 20 hundredths, we need obviously our numbers to line up so that the 20 finishes at the hundredths if our decimal places. If we know this is the decimal point, then we know 20 hundredths is in fact 2 tenths and 0 hundredths. And the decimal fraction looks like this. So we can also think of it as dividing it by 100. 20, which is what's happening over here, 20 divided by 100, 20 hundredths. So 20 divided by 100, well, we know the decimal point is here, So we move it 2 places to the left, and it was here. Hence our 0.2 response. Okay? So this all means the same thing. Please understand that and know that it's not a calculation of something, it's just a renaming of the fraction or quantity. It's the same quantity. 20% is 1/5, is 0.2. It's the same, the value. Alright, so now that we understand that, we're going to look at some examples, and you're going to practice some of these for homework this weekend. Now, here are some examples. Here are our different ways of talking about the same amount, and we're going to turn them into percents. Now, we know that 0.145 can be turned into a percent by understanding the language. We know that this place is the ones place. We know that this place is the tenths. We know that this place is the hundredths, and we know that this place is the thousands. So percent, what does percent mean? We learnt about it at the very top. Percent means hundredths out of 100. So we're looking at turning things into something out of 100, or hundredths, turning things into hundredths. So we're turning this into hundredths. Now, we've got the language, our place value tells us what to do. We have 0 ones, 1/10, 4 hundredths, and 5 thousandths. Now the hundredths obviously stop here. 14 hundredths is what we have, and 5 thousandths. So if we turn this into a percent, it becomes 14 hundredths, which is 14.5%. And the decimal point goes in between here, because that's where we have the hundredths. 14 hundredths and 5 thousandths. And the 5 thousandths is indicated by the decimal. Or, alternatively, like we did here, we know we can just, well, we didn't do it here before, but alternatively, if we divide by 100 from a 20%, in order to turn it back into its percent, so 2 into the percent, we can multiply 100. So it's going to be 0.2 times 100, which equals, maybe 2 places, 20%. Okay? So here in this question, if we wanted to turn it into a percent, we simply can also do 0.145 times 100. There are 2 zeros, so our decimal is going to make the number bigger and move 2 places. And it moves between the 4 and the 5. And we can see that it is 14.5%. If you're happy with that, go on to this question and complete all the decimal fractions, turning them into percentages. If you're not, go back over it again. And finish those ones first, and then go on to this question here. So 1/8 we want to turn into a percentage. We need to know what this symbol means and what it means computation-wise. Please remember that it means divide. We can turn this number into a decimal to then into a percent by knowing to divide. So we can go 1 divided by 8. Notice it's not the other way around. 1 divided by 8. Put the decimal in, put a bunch of zeros, and we can calculate this. 8 into 1, can't go. 8 into 10, or some people like to carry the 1 over here. 8 into 10 goes twice. my bad. 8 into 10 goes once, with 2 remaining. 8 into 20 goes twice, with 4 remaining, and 8 into 40 goes 5 times. And we have our decimal fraction that we know can be turned into a percent by thinking of our hundredths place and replacing that word hundredths with percents. So it's 12 hundredths, 5 thousandths. So it's 12.5%. Or alternatively, we know from a decimal to a percent, we multiply 100. Move the decimal point twice, and we get 12.5%. Okay, this one here, obviously we want to get to this stage here, but in order to do that, we need to turn this mixed number fraction into an improper fraction. We know we use timeless. These two we times, and then we add here. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4, so that is the same as 4 thirds. We then do our division, 4 divided by 3. 3 into 4 goes once. Put some zeros down. 3 into 4 goes once. With 1 left over, 3 into 10 goes 3 times. With 1 left over, 3 into 10 goes 3 times. And we know we're going to be getting a recurring number. So we have 1.3 recurring. Now, looking at our place value, we know we have a 3 really in that hundredths, a 3 in our tenths, and a 1 in our wholes. So if we wanted to read this whole number in terms of hundredths, we actually have 133 hundredths. And we know what hundredths means, percent. So we don't just have 133 hundredths, we have 133%. Or alternatively, we know we times our decimal by 100 to turn it into a percent. Okay. Can you go ahead and finish these questions here? Stop the video and then start again in a minute. Alright, moving on to question 2. Find an amount of an amount as a percentage. Alright, let's say you completed a test, a maths test, and the test had 25 marks, and let's say you got you scored, say 22 marks out of 25, and you want to know whether you got an A, B, C or D. Let's say that to get an A you have to get over 85%, and let's see if you get an A by turning this 22 out of 25 into a percentage. Now, to do that, we have to make a fraction and see that fraction. So if I use this double number line business here, it will help me a little bit in this question, the thinking. So I'm going to draw 2 lines just to help us thinking. Alright, I'm just going to draw it freehand, I think. So 2 number lines. This is percentage. We've got something out of 100%. And another double number line. We've got something out of 25. And we want to find what 22 is as a percentage. What percent is 22 out of 25? As 25 is 100%. And our double number line. We want to find what 22% is.